All right, so we're here today with Deepak and Hansen. They have a new startup that they have, which is called the Tyre Collective, and they're doing something pretty unique. Maybe you guys can explain to our viewers what you guys have figured out and what you're working on.
Yeah, so the Tyre Collective is a startup aimed to mitigate tire wear emissions. So tire wear emissions is every time your vehicle accelerates, brakes, or corner, little particles come off. And these particles are actually the second largest microplastic pollutant and a stealthy source of air pollution. It gets into our waterways, our oceans, and eventually the food that we eat. And there's currently nothing to stop this stealthy pollution source. So our business is really targeted at developing devices to capture these particles at source.
Okay, but I'll bet the amount of stuff coming off these tires is like minuscule, probably can't even measure it. So who cares?
Well, it's actually more than what people assume. So unlike tailpipe emissions, tire wear is completely invisible. So what we did was we tracked different vehicles over a period of 24 hours. And this is what the longest bus route in London produces in 24 hours. And that's 300 grams. Transport for London has over 9,000 buses.
Whoa.
So all right, well, so you just kind of followed behind it, and you just kind of swept up, the bus particle, the tire bus particle stuff, right? I mean, this stuff must be easy to clean up. You just sweep it into a little bin, and then you have your cube, and we'll put that cube on a shelf, and we won't have to worry about it anymore, right?
Well, it was a little more, slightly more convenient, sophisticated than that. So the TfL has an online API that we can track all the buses that go up and down. So basically what we did is we got average figures about how much a bus tire emits over a period of 1 hour. And then we were able to track multiple buses across their fleet. And then we were able to calculate how much one bus can sort of emit over a day. So we didn't actually go around sweeping it behind that'd be a lot of effort.
Where does this stuff go? I mean, you say it's invisible, so what does it look like, I guess, if I can't see it?
They kind of look like little black powdery particles. They are there. They're just kind of dispersed across, the roadways in London. About 2/3 of it is actually in the ground, and then about a third of it becomes airborne. There's studies that indicate that it's a particulate emission, so PM 2.5 or PM 10 emission, which is harmful to human health at any concentration.
Yeah, we were also looking at recent research from Pew, where they say that tire wear is probably more prevalent than single-use plastics in microplastics in the oceans. So this is becoming a larger problem than people imagined.
So this is a multi-pronged problem. I mean, we have both, emissions that are going to be entering our lungs, which is going to be causing health problems for humans. But then you're saying that it's also a huge contributor to microplastic pollution, which just kind of gets everywhere and is in everything. And then we start eating it, which again adds to more health problems. But it's not going to be just human health problems. It's going to be the entire ecosystem, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah, so the thing with most cities is that once the tire wear is off the tire, it enters directly into our rivers and then into our oceans and then so on. And then these are small enough to really disrupt ocean and marine ecosystems.
Okay, so now I feel really bad about driving. And you guys, that's great that you brought this to our attention, but what are you guys doing about it?
We are a group of designers and engineers, and we sort of created this device which is able to capture these at source, right at the wheels. Imagine it's a catalytic converter for tire wear. So it basically, as tire particles come off as you're driving, it can basically capture most of the particles coming off into its device, store it, and then what we do is we take it and we are able to recycle it and put it back into new tires.
Well, this sounds pretty complicated. Why don't we just make tires out of some kind of nice stuff? Like instead of it turning into bad stuff, just make the tires out of something that's nicer, like concrete.
I wish it was that easy. Unfortunately, there are over 200 different chemicals that go into making a tire. It needs to withstand forces, pressure, weather, sustainable materials at this point is a little hard to sort of develop. And tire companies have come up with concepts of sustainable tires, but they've always remained concepts. So it's very hard to sort of build that material at scale.
So it's kind of impossible to have this earthy, crunchy tire at the moment. There's, a couple ways to look at it. We could either forget the tires and just stop having cars, planes, buses. I guess we'll just have to have trains that just run on rails. And that will have to be our solution, right? You'd either have to do that or we have to take care of the tire pollution at the source, because I think a lot of people are not going to want to give up their car just because of the tire wear.
I mean, we don't want to give up cars or any sort of mode of transport. We're all for it. We just want, at least as a company and as a team, we just want to be a little more responsible going forward in the innovation and the kind of products we create. We want to be more responsible towards the planet. Every day we get shocked looking at how the consequences of our impact has reached all the most furthest parts of the planet. So yeah, we just want to...
Yeah, and I guess right now there's kind of a huge development towards electric vehicles. And while that solves tailpipe emissions quite drastically, what is unintended is that with electric vehicles, since they're heavier and have higher torque, tires wear about 30% faster. So that means more tire wear in our environment. So as we develop, electric vehicles, really consider the implications of tire wear, so we're not replacing one pollution source with another.
Now, how did you guys come up with, sitting down to solve this problem? Can you talk about your group and how you first started talking about this and working on it?
This project started in our master's course at Innovation Design Engineering at the Royal College of Art and Imperial College London. So that there's four of us, so me, Hanson, Deepak, Siobhan, and Hugo, really started looking at microplastics at large, and was quite shocked when we found out that tires is the second largest microplastic pollutant in our environment. First is single-use plastics, and you hear a lot about microfibers and microbeads in cosmetics, but never really tire wear. And that kind of really shocked us.
Didn't know either.
And really kind of challenged our perception of what vehicle pollution is. We realized that there's not much awareness about this issue, nor any solutions towards this issue. So as kind of designers and engineers, we really want to find a solution to solve this.
I know some of this is probably proprietary, but can you walk us through the basic idea of your design?
So yeah, we found out that tire wear, when the particles wear off, they're charged from friction with the road. So we're able to use electrostatics and airflow to attract and capture these particles. And right now on our in-lab test rig, we capture about 60% of all airborne particles. And right now, as we're trying to develop this forward, trying to maximize this collection efficiency so we can collect more particles and therefore reducing its impact in our environment. Right now, as we're developing, we imagine the device to be attached to the steering knuckle of the vehicle, so it's able to move and turn. It's positioned in an area where it takes advantage of the various airflows around the spinning tire. From kind of our conversations with aerodynamic experts, they said it can actually reduce drag as well on vehicles. So there are potentially multiple benefits beyond kind of tire wear capturing for our technology.
That's interesting. So I guess you would partner with vehicle manufacturers to have these outfitted on the cars?
Yeah, so we're talking to vehicle manufacturers, tire manufacturers, and our long-term vision is to integrate this technology into new vehicles. So today there's about 95 million cars produced globally, and to really to integrate our device in that can really make a difference.
So for the investors out there that are watching who are like, oh, this sounds like it could be a multi-billion-dollar solution to a big problem in the world, they might be trying to ask right now, how could I get involved in this company? Is there a way for me to become a seed investor? So what stage are you at with your company right now?
Yeah, so we're currently a early stage pre-revenue startup. We are looking to start our first funding round in January. So definitely contact us.
So when you four were sitting around in your college room thinking about this company, whatever, this idea, and you got to the point where you had some prototypes, at some point you thought, well, this could be a company, right? I mean, I don't think you were thinking of it as a company when you first started. Can you kind of walk me through your thinking from college project to start up?
We didn't consider it as a company at first, but then we received a lot of support from different competitions, from the James Dyson Foundation, from the Mayor of London in over here. And we realized that it is a possible and feasible sort of solution where we can sort of look at circular economic models to create a business around it. And yeah, that's pretty much what drove us, and obviously driven by our own sort of passion to start something new.
Now, you're mainly designers and engineers, which is awesome, but do any of you have a background in business?
No, so we were able to kind of, at Imperial College, get advisors on board who are business people and finance experts to help us. But we are looking to expand our team moving forward to include a business person, a finance expert, manufacturing expert as well.
But yeah, we are learning on the fly. It's super intense, but super challenging and super fun. It's been a great experience till now.
Now, the problem you're trying to tackle is a big one. I mean, we're talking 1 billion cars in the world, and this would be a major change, a major thing. Did you ever stop and think like, this might be just too big a thing? Like, why don't we go after something easier?
Scoping out the different markets, there are about 4.3 billion cars on the road right now. But and we also kind of realized that personal car markets are very fragmented, and they're very huge, and a lot of sort of ownership comes on the car owner to sort of clean and maintain the device and things. So what we have identified as a sort of start point or a beachhead market are fleet vehicles and public transport, because they have very strict and very regular maintenance schedules. Mm-hmm. So based on that, we can then sort of fit into their schedules, and then we can then capture and collect particles, fit our devices, test them. So it's a more controlled sort of environment.
So right now, what does your testing look like? I know that you started in a lab with like a bicycle wheel, but are you ever going to test this on like a real car?
Yeah, so we're currently looking for a new rig to test this on a car tire or various types of car tire, and hope to really test our first prototype on a vehicle June or July next year. So that is kind of the next goal that we're working towards.
So you're in London right now. If there are any viewers in the UK, could they help you if they have a car? Is this the kind of thing you need help with, or is that the easy part? Is the hard part actually making the prototype?
Probably would need a more dilapidated car to run our tests, I guess. But we welcome partnerships in terms of testing. So we've built partnerships with companies who make wheels. There's a company in Germany. There's also a company in Sweden. So we are sort of working with people. So if viewers are affiliated with these companies, then we're more than welcome to talk.
That's great. So it sounds like the next big step then is to test it in kind of a real world situation on a car. And what are the challenges with doing that?
Yeah, so one immediate challenge that we always get asked is, what happens in the rain and dirt and snow, even if you're in Boston and such. So. And that is something that is unknown, but we do have theories about how to counter the impacts of that. That's kind of our next step, is to test, what in an in-lab setting, like what are the impacts of rain, for example, on our device. Therefore, when we do a full product launch, we can have these aspects considered and thought out before an on-vehicle test.
So let's talk about markets a little bit. Down the road, way down the road, there's probably going to be a use for this for OEMs putting it on their car fleets. But you talked about early on, you're probably going to focus on fleets like buses. Is that the first market that you're going after? And how will you get them to actually, how will you work with them?
We've actually already spoken to Transport for London, which is, London's public transport system, and we've already got a letter of interest from the head of engineering. So what is interesting is a lot of these fleet vehicle companies already have sustainable goals that they need to reach. They also have, so they're also interested in it. So we've gained interest in it already. So what we are trying to do now is really understand that systems, get into how often they change the tires, how often their tires wear down, get that data as well to help them sort of understand how much their buses are running and what are the kind of impact that it's having, so they can then get subsidies as well from the government for that.
If I'm someone who's watching this show and I drive an electric vehicle and now I'm worried about the tire pollution that I might be putting out. Is there anything that I can do either in the way that I drive or the tires that I buy to reduce my impact?
Yeah, I mean, it looks at the way you drive and how much you drive. Like, there are different tires that have different sort of wear amounts. We're still sort of mapping those out for different companies. There's so many different models. But it basically looks at how evenly you can drive without too much acceleration, without too much, braking softly.
So if you can at least contribute to a reduction in tire wear just based on your driving, is this something that you think could be scaled, both your product and the way that a car drives? Could that be applied to full self-driving robo-taxis or other autonomous vehicles?
Yeah, I think in the future, I think that's crucial. That's quite crucial, because right now there is no way of measuring tire wear or non-exhaust emissions in real time with for different people across at scale. Most of it is done in lab. So that's what we're also kind of working on. So how do you get that data? How do you get that information, which could lead to those sustainable tires in the future?
So looking forward, what is kind of the time scale that you're looking at? How soon do you think you could get some kind of device into a fleet?
So right now we're looking at having our first kind of pilot trial in 2022 before a full product launch in 2023. It is, given the extent of the problem and the complications of the trickiness in, the underbody of a car, it will take some time to develop it, but we're trying to do it as fast as possible.
And then a question to cost. Now, I know when you're first starting out, the very first thing you build is very expensive, but then when you finally get to scale, it goes down. Have you guys given any thought to what the cost might be once you can get this to scale?
We aim to have our device per vehicle around about 1,500 pounds for 4 devices. So that's the current kind of price range. But moving forward, we are, talking to suppliers, talking to our future customers to gauge whether this is a comfortable price range for them.
And then when you're kind of done with the, when you think you've gotten to the final revision stage, are you envisioning this? How big is this? I'm trying to picture is this going to be a very noticeable thing on a vehicle, or is it going to kind of blend in with the car?
It could be integrated as a mudguard, for example. So it is much more integrated to the design of the car and very hidden.
There are 2 sort of strategies. One is an aftermarket strategy where it would be a retrofittable device. So how would that sort of affect the design of your car, or how do we make it as discreet as possible? And then, of course, moving forward, there is the integrated solution that's pretty much invisible.
So there are vehicles that operate indoors, and I heard that you guys are working specifically on something to do with that.
Yeah, that was a market that came that we weren't expecting either, but we got a lot of responses from people in the US, across the United States, and that's indoor forklifts, where a lot of operators have to pay a fair bit of taxes and money for running these forklifts. What happens is a lot of forklift tires have zinc in them, and that zinc wears off the tires and then goes into the rivers or into waterways, and the EPA already has legislation for it, and different states have legislation on top of that. So this is like an existing problem. So we are sort of getting into that as well. So if the listeners are forklift operators or have forklifts, then get in touch.
And that keeps it out of forklifter operator lungs.
Yeah. It's also a health hazard, especially because it's an indoor controlled environment.
Well, that kind of brings me to a lot of stuff that we talk about on the show, like the Boring Company tunnels. They want to be running Teslas in very small tunnels, and of course they don't have to ventilate the tunnels to remove carbon monoxide and stuff like that. And many of them are equipped with very nice filtration systems, but still, I could imagine that there would be a buildup of tire dust in those tunnels, and you might want something that would just capture it right at the source.
Yeah, that's actually quite true. One of the people who reached out to us about forklifts sent us pictures of their factory floor, which is concrete, and you can just see this layer of black dust across the floor, and if you just move across it, the whole thing just flies up. So there's I imagine something like that happening in a tunnel. So there is a tunneling effect all the time. So yeah.
And let's talk about this dust. I mean, you held up a box of it. I mean, show me that box of dust again. It's just blowing my mind here. Okay, so that's just what's collected on a bus, a regular old bus for one day driving around a regular old city. Okay, so you collect all this dust, and I can imagine now just pile warehouses full of it. Do you have to just throw it in a landfill? What do you do with it?
We're working with tire recyclers to assess the reusability of these tire particles in new tire production to produce recycled carbon black for inks and dyes. Currently, we're capturing samples and sending them off to tire recyclers in the Netherlands to assess its properties and value. Currently, from kind of initial assessment, given that these particles are naturally grounded, they may have better properties to be used in their production lines. So it's a promising kind of route to establish a circular model for this waste collection.
So you're actually taking what is a huge problem and turning it into a resource that you could potentially even sell. I mean, that's kind of amazing if you think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's a really famous quote by Buckminster Fuller where he says that pollution is just a resource waiting to be used. Yeah, I think moving forward, businesses now, with such a huge drive from consumers to be sustainable, there would be new circular business models that challenge existing ways of doing business, and how do you find new opportunities in that? And we see a lot of people doing that already. So yeah, the future is bright.
Thank you so much, guys, for taking on and tackling this problem, because it is overwhelming, and I can see in the future that you guys are going to be successful. I mean, I want you guys to stick with it and check back in with us on progress, because I really want to let our viewers know how you guys are doing. So thank you so much, Tyre Collective, for the work you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thank you so much for watching this episode of Disruptive Investing. Be sure to like the video and subscribe. Click the bell button to be notified when new videos come out.